Day two of fall camp is in the books. What do you need to know? This team is going to be very good and a couple surprises.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, Mike Luke. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel.com. All kinds of really, really good things going on at FanDuel, and you know your money is good. In this day and age, that is what you want. You know what you want your money to be good. Check it out, FanDuel.com. All right, now, Arizona football fall camp day 2 in the books, and we need to talk a little bit too about the coaches. We talked about this yesterday, but this is what's exciting about this coaching staff is that there is a sense of let's say calculated intensity, in that this coaching staff clearly knows that they have a lot of talent on this roster. This isn't the situation where, when a coach takes over and you're like, all right, well, hopefully we can win a game this year, kind of like when Fish took over. I mean, this is a good roster that Brent Brennan has inherited, and he knows it. I mean, basically talked about he knew what good teams look like, but it was exciting because a lot of times with the start of fall camp, we've been through a number of fall camps. The one thing with fall camp is sometimes coaches take that first day as just a feeling out process. No, Brent Brennan says there will be no feeling out process, and it was absolutely it was great. Players, getting into 7-on-7s, you're able to see some players, jostling back and forth, especially at the DB position, where we've talked about. That's going to be a massive strength for this football team. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. Marquise Groves-Killebrew, I envision lining up opposite Tacario Davis, and I think those are going to be two really, really good corners for you, and honestly, two corners that have NFL potential. Now, again, I get that Marquise Groves-Killebrew is more of a projection at this point, totally understand, but there's a lot to like about him. And again, you can see guys that sign with Georgia, guys that sign with Alabama, they generally look a little bit different, and that's kind of the case here with some of these players on this team. And we're going to get to those in just a second. But Marquise Groves-Killebrew absolutely looks the part, and he is, if he can be somewhat similar to what Ephesians Prysock was, and again, Ephesians Prysock is fantastic. I don't need him to be that good, but if he could be somewhere in there, maybe approaching that, maybe looking like somebody that has an NFL future, this defense should be really good, because anytime you give somebody like Dwayne Aquina 6 DBs that can all play, and we already know that with Dalton Johnson, Gunnar Maldonado, Genesis Smith, Traden Stukes, Tacario Davis, you got 5. If you can get that 6th one in with Marquise Groves-Killebrew and Owen Goss. Owen Goss, by the way, transfer out of Colgate, who he's a thumper. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he made some big plays as well. Both those players, I think, are going to be very. All those guys are going to be interesting, especially because there is some depth issues, which we're going to get to in a second. But there are certain players on this team that just look the part, and they just look the part differently than pretty much anybody else, and Marquise Groves-Killebrew is one of those guys. As far as new players, Ja'Cory Krosky that merits a mention. we will talk about him a little bit with the running backs. He looks different. Kedrick Risano, there's just kind of a different type vibe, a different type feel. Now, with Dwayne Aquina spoke, and he talked about, again, a lot about Traden Stukes, and I believe he believes that Stukes is going to be an NFL player, that he can move him all around, and Aquina's talked about, again, about getting the best football players on the field, and I think that is such a big thing in this day and age, where you have college football coaches, I think a lot of times, that it's not about getting the best players on the field, it's about getting the places that you're like, all right, well, here's a linebacker, here's a DB, and and you've got a better player over there on the bench. That's not really what you want if you're in this day and age. Now, I do think with this coaching staff, it is fascinating that there's a little bit of an undercurrent. I think that I think they know who are going to be some of these breakout players. They're not saying it, obviously, but when it comes to trading Stooks, and we're going to stay on the DBs here for a minute, when it comes to Stooks, you can tell that Akina believes that he's going to have a massive season, and he's probably not coming off the field. Same thing with Genesis Smith, Marquise Groves, Killebrew, so there's that. Now, at the linebacker spot, Tay Brown, again, looks the part. He looks the part in a way that somebody like Leviticus Sua doesn't. I think with Leviticus Sua, you were hoping that he was going to be that linebacker because, again, he came in here as the Trinity League Player of the Year out of Modern Day. But watching him, you can just kind of tell that he's a little bit... He's just not quick twitch, and I think in this day and age you've got to have some quick twitch capabilities to you. If you don't have some quick twitch capabilities to you, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult. This isn't back in 1994 where you can just plug somebody in the box and say, all right, your job is to stop the run. Players are far more versatile now, and not only are they more versatile, they're looking for mismatches. I don't know that Sue is that guy. Tay Brown does show some potential to me. I think with Brown, the big thing is, what is that, how good can he be? Can he translate this onto the field? He was a kind of a late bloomer out of Phoenix, but again, looks the part, broad shoulders. We'll see what happens there. One thing then with the defensive line, the starting D line right now is Isaiah Johnson and Chuba May, and both of them are huge guys. I think the question with Isaiah Johnson is, can you stay healthy? Kid out of Chandler, he's been very, very good when he's been able to stay healthy, and he's kind of forced his way onto the field this year. It wouldn't surprise me. I think a lot of people were thinking that Kevon Darton was going to be the starter, and he very well might be, but it's going to be Isaiah Johnson is going to get a lot of looks when on this defense, and if he can be that run stuffer along with Chuba, it gives you a lot more flexibility to be able to do things. But both those guys are good. I think with Kevon Darton and Bear Anderson, that's going to be a spot where they just look a little bit smaller still. And they look like they're kind of in that 270 range. And when you're talking about somebody like Chuba, who's 6'4", 350, or Isaiah Johnson, who is clearly, over 300 pounds, there is a difference. But Dwayne Akina has talked about multiple times. He wants to have players that aren't just filling the gaps like last year. He wants them to be able to get upfield, and I think there's a lot to like, and I think, those guys can do that. But that's something, there definitely is a noticeable size gap between all of those players, and that's something that I think we obviously need to keep an eye on. But I think somebody like Akina knows that he is that he's got more than enough talent, and it's up to him to be able to make this one work. The emotion that you see from this guy is amazing. I've never been a believer in age when it comes to anything. I'm a believer in what I see. Like, I've seen 90-year-olds who act like 62-year-olds, and I've seen 70-year-olds that look like they're 125 years old. To me, age doesn't matter. I go by what I see. Watching Dwayne Akina, 67 years old, he looks like he's going on 40. He's super active, he's super motivated, and I love seeing that. There's nothing cooler than seeing somebody like that is fully engaged, fully with it, and just very, very exciting to see what exactly that can. But he's got a nice little defense to him, and I think that with this squad, he is. I think he knows that he can do some things. I think people are sleeping on this Arizona defense. What I've been saying is, have this be a top 4 defense in the Big 12, and I think you're going to be in the college football playoffs, because I don't have a lot of questions about the offense. We're going to get to the offense here in just a second, but first, eBay Motors, my friends. eBay Motors. You might say to yourself, Mike Luke, eBay Motors, what should I know about eBay Motors? Well, thanks for asking. Here's the deal. eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. The great thing about eBay Motors is cut out the middleman. I know nothing about cars, nothing. So if I take it to a shop, they're probably going to screw me over for $400. I am tired of it, as should you if you don't know anything about cars. Go to eBay Motors, and eBay Motors will give you the part, then take it to somebody you rely on, somebody you trust. Not some guy that you don't trust, you don't know. Check it out, eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats, and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, Let's talk about the running backs. Running backs are very interesting for me. I don't think there's going to be one little drop-off from the running back rotation from last year. Last year, obviously, Jonah Coleman, very, very good, but he is up in smelly, rainy Seattle. So, shoo. DJ Williams graduated. Michael Wiley off to the NFL. But I don't think there's going to be any drop-off. I really don't. Ja'Cory Krosky merits that. But watching him, though, he looks totally different. He is I was told by a coach this summer that this is somebody that could be a day 3 draft pick. He's got that type of potential to him, and he does. He looks different. He just kind of moves different, and I would be very surprised if he's not the back that's getting 60% of the carries. I think that that's going to be the case. And then after that, Quali Conley is going to be in there, and then you got Fam, Rayshon, Speedy Luke. This is a running back unit that's going to be dynamic. And Alonzo Carter, the great Alonzo Carter at running backs coach, did a great job in getting this stable of running backs there. You've also got Riscano as well. That is a super deep rotation, and it's going to be fun to watch how all of this unfolds, because if you got a power running game to go along with Noah Fafita, to go along with everything you have, you're going to be able to win a lot of games. The running back room very much looks the part, and I would be very surprised if they don't have, even though it's basically an entirely new unit outside of FAM, I would be very, very surprised if this unit is not one of the very best in the Big 12. As a matter of fact, Alonzo Carter, I think, believes it is the best unit in the Big 12. So there's obviously that, but again, you got to give a huge tip of the cap to Carter as well for filling out this running back room in the manner in which he did, because there was a lot that left, and I think it just looks great. I think now with obviously when it comes to the O-line, we've talked about it before. Rhino is going to be Rhino Tapatui Tatai Rhino, I believe, is going to maybe get some kind of run there at that lineman spot. He was tried out at tackle. We'll continue to see what he can do. I don't believe that he's a lost cause, though. I believe that Rhino has the potential to be a good football player for the U of A. We will see exactly what he can do, but he's getting some reps. I don't think that he's a lost cause. I don't want to say lost cause because it just sounds terrible, but somebody like a Elijah Payne, a Tylen Gonzalez, I just don't think that they're going to be good enough, and I think that's the problem. But I don't really blame the coaching staff previously for taking a chance on players like that, because generally they've been pretty good at it. But those guys I don't think are good enough. Rhino, though, has some potential. Rhino is huge. He's got himself in the best shape that he's probably been in since here. He's an interesting one to keep an eye on, as is big. Obviously, we talked about this yesterday, and coaches talked about how they're going to continue to look at things. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Jonas Savaiinaea at some point is moved to left tackle. I think when you've got a first-round pick who's obviously really good, and you've got a massive question at left tackle, a lot of times it behooves you to put that really good player in there. I think with Jonas Savaiinaea, there is a real possibility that he could be that guy, and honestly, I think that just helps his NFL future. I would love to see that, because again, on the line, you've got some talent for sure, but but Jonah's different than everybody else out there. If you put him in there, I think that there's a real possibility that he can man that left tackle position, and at that point you're good to go. If you can man that left tackle position and you've got a NFL player there, then you can really start working at that right tackle spot, because with Wendell Moy, with Josh Baker, and with Leif Magnuson, I think you feel really good about where things are. But at that other tackle position, you got to still figure that one out. Right now, you're looking at Rhino, you're looking at Michael Wooten, you're looking at Jonah Rodriguez. I still think my favorite for that would be Jonah Rodriguez, but we will find out. But you got to get something in there. And what is really going to help is the tight ends. This is a very, very deep tight end room. And I think Kean Burnett, we got to talk about it again, but Kean Burnett has just looked absolutely fantastic. And Not only is Kean Burnett looked fantastic, he looks like the player that we've talked about before, where he's going to be an NFL type. He's going to be an NFL type player. I mean, his father, Big Chester, big time player, obviously, and he's the dude that he runs up and down the field, and he, again, another guy, just looks totally different than everybody else out there. He is. I think this is going to be his breakthrough year. Listen, he got to football a little bit late. That's what people, I think, need to remember, is that he did get to football late, the tight end position late, because he didn't have a tight end coach in school. And I think that took a little bit of time. But watching him now, he looks different. He looks good. He looks ready to go. I'm excited to see what he can do, because I do believe that there is NFL potential there. Not only do I believe that there's NFL potential there, I believe there's all conference level ability there, and he's a really, really good kid too. That is the one thing with these guys. A lot of these kids are just really, really good kids that are very, very easy to root for, and that's obviously something that you'd love to see. Very easy, very rootable kids, and guys that I think just kind of get it. This tight end room, though, very deep. Between him, Sam Olsen's obviously going to get a lot of looks. Roberto Miranda didn't participate yesterday, but he was great in spring. And honestly, you look at it, Dorian Thomas as well. This coaching staff is very intrigued by running a lot of two tight end sets. You have those two tight ends, I think you're going to feel really good. But I do think that Kean Burnett has the potential to be the player that really breaks out. And who knows, maybe he's an NFL player at this time next year. But the potential is definitely there. Tight end room looks the part. Now, the receivers, I have no questions about. My biggest concern will obviously be on the offensive line, because, again, I don't love the depth there. Think it, obviously not having Polito in there hurts. But people, I think with Polito, you got to remember that he wasn't really... people that were expecting a lot from Polito, I don't know that they were necessarily being realistic about it, because this is a situation where his dad clearly wanted him to go to Washington. Polito is a really good kid, wanted to stay here. It just didn't work out so far. Everything's got to get in line, but the coaching staff supports him. He's a good kid. Again, I'm going to keep reiterating, he's a good kid, and wish the best for him, on and off the field. But Arizona's obviously got to find another tackle, and if you could find that tackle, then I think you're in pretty good shape. But overall, though, no excuses. I'm going to continue to put this out there. No excuses. I believe that this team is a top 15, top 10 team in the entire country. Sorry about that. And I think that this team should be in the college football playoffs. We're going to talk about the week 2 ahead and what we're looking for. But first, FanDuel. Check it out. FanDuel. All kinds of really good stuff at FanDuel. Here's the deal. At FanDuel.com, your money is good. And you can bet on games before, you can bet on games during, or you can bet on futures. All kinds of good stuff. Check it out at FanDuel.com. Another one where you will thank me later. And again, there's nothing more enjoyable than betting on games where you got a little bit of skin in the game, a little bit of action. I don't like watching baseball, but guess what? If I got some money on it, baseball becomes fascinating. So again, check it out, FanDuel.com. Again, your money's good. You don't have to worry about any of it. Again, your money is good. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now, wrap up here in this last segment. We've, this team, like I said, well, you could tell during spring, they look the part. You could tell during fall, they're all in the, or you can tell from the first couple days, everybody's on the same page. Watching Noah Fafita, though, and the leadership which he manifests out there, it just shows you a leader and something that you don't generally see a lot in college football, in that he could have gone pretty much anywhere he wanted, obviously, and he decided that he wanted to stay here, and everybody around him just gravitates towards him. It's a very unique situation. You generally don't see that with with especially freshmen, now sophomore quarterbacks, but he just commands the huddle. He has a quiet confidence to him, and he can make anything work. And we've talked about this before. If the offense isn't good, I'm looking at coaches. I'm not looking at Noah Fifita, because I already know what Noah Fifita can do. He looks sharp. He looks a little bit stronger. I know that they're trying to, get him a little bit stronger, because one thing about him is Noah Fifita can't get hurt. They need Noah Fifita to stay upright. Looking at the backups, Adam DeMonte out of NAU actually didn't look terrible. He can move a little bit. He's played in-game action. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets that backup quarterback nod. Or, I think it's going to be between him and Braden Dorman. But listen, if Noah Fifita gets hurt, then Arizona's obviously in deep poo. But assuming Fifita can stay healthy, this is an offense that should be a top 10 offense in the entire country. It's very exciting to see what they can do. I'm also excited to see where this offense stands when everything is when the coast clears and everything, because you got everything outside of a couple questions on the O-line. You got a lot of breakout possibilities. Now, I think in week 2 we're going to start looking, because I know that the coaches are going to start moving some players around, seeing what else, seeing who can do what. I'm going to be very curious to see what happens on the offensive line. Again, we talked about it. Are you going to continue to try different guys at different positions? Will you continue to, will this be a week where you move Jonah to left tackle? What is the case going to be there? As far as receivers, do you continue to see a bunch of guys that are in and out? Will you see more of a Jeremiah Patterson? Will you see a Ramello Murphy? Ramello Murphy, again, working on the outside. So, that was obviously interesting. Then with on the defensive side, how are you, the linebacker? That to me is, a big question mark. And will Dwayne Aquina continue to utilize guys, getting them in closer to the line of the scrimmage? Genesis Smith, we talked about. Genesis Smith had 2 very good two very good days of practice. Is he going to continue to play down there? And he's also shown that he can be a little bit of a ball hawk from an interception perspective. That's going to be fascinating to see. And then at the D-line, do you start moving Kevon Darton around? Who emerges as maybe some of that depth on the defensive ends? And if that depth doesn't emerge, does Dwayne Aquina decide that he's going to start playing, start moving guys around? Keep in mind, Jacob Manu is a huge wild card in all this, because Jacob Manu last year had 6 sacks. Can he get 6 or 7 sacks again this season? I don't see why not. But up front, it's obviously a totally different team. It's not as big, obviously, but I don't see necessarily the same kind of pass rush being able to manifest itself. So there's a lot of very interesting things to look at if you're Arizona, if you're from an Arizona football perspective. And again, it's a top 10 team, top 10, top 15 team. We will continue to see, hopefully, no injuries, obviously, but, it looked good. I think you got, like we talked about yesterday, I think you got your punting situation figured out. And I think Jared Small, linebacker from Tulane, had 60 tackles last year, was at LSU originally. He's a fascinating guy to watch. Just a lot of really good storylines, a lot of really good vibes going on at camp. But that's what we'll be focusing on a ton next week. We'll probably also get to a little bit of Arizona basketball as well. But as always, you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Again, we got a really good football team here. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great weekend.